And we are back. Look
There
at
it
that.
is.
That's called seamless transition.
We were waiting to see if we
Hot
were
dog.
gonna with the mics and everything, and we're
Yeah.
good to go. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. Obviously, I want to remind you again: like, subscribe, all those
Oh,
things,
yeah.
share this with everyone.
We got to remember this
So-
is going to, for some
Yes.
people, this is going to be brand new.
Yes,
This
this
is we're going to
is
start it off.
going to be segment number 2, stage 2, form 2. We're going to figure out what we're doing here, exactly what we're going
Indeed.
to call it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Lenny.
Thank you very much, Lenny. Yeah, so again, like, subscribe, share us with everyone. Do we drop out on the YouTubes? What happened?
No, it's still rolling.
Okay, scared the piss out of me for a second.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
still here.
Excellent
right here.
condition.
Okay. Not going to say it for a third time. We have our Instagram.com/saltofthestreets, YouTube, where you're watching us now.com/saltofthestreets, Patreon.com/saltofthestreets. If you want to help us make more, better content, please go there, become a patron. You can find all this on saltofthestreets.com. If you want to go and watch some gaming, go to Lexi Kayo on Twitch. Swell Blended for a haircut if you're in the local area. Location Skate Shop if you need a skateboard. And, of course, leggings and aprons on Instagram if you want some cakes.
Get them while you can.
Yeah, get them while you can, exactly, on the next few weeks.
Yeah, somebody's wicked pregnant.
Excuse me, we had the review preview that dropped on Monday for our February and March books. We have the beer show that drops every Friday. We have the clips that come out every day. And, of course, we have the newsletter that comes out on the last day of the month. It is never too late to get that on the Patreon. That's for the $5 tier. All costs $5. You get all the things plus the articles from me, from Colin. It's fantastic. $5. So,
$5 foot long.
oh, my God.
It's an article that's a foot long.
This-
So that's how we're doing that.
Okay.
Happy 204. What's up?
Yeah, 2 of 4. So let's see. I live tweeted the vast majority of this.
Oh, the town hall? Not the town hall.
State of the Union. Yeah. So
Doo-doo-doo-doo.
this segment, of course, about the State of the Union. The first thing I want to say, the man himself performed better than I expected, regardless of what Crowder said, because Crowder talked a little, like, I felt more shit than was necessary,
That's
or
what he
even
does.
called for. But
Yeah.
that is what Steven Crowder does. So, you know,
That's why I didn't listen to his stream this time.
I did just because, you know, I gotta see what, and he also didn't
Yeah.
put an episode the next day. So
Which I gotta tell
Fuck
you,
you.
man. I gotta tell you. I'm just trying.
Let's
Let me
hear
get
it.
my fucking notes up real quick. Show map. There it is. I gotta tell you, bro. I am so fucking sick and tired. I had a conversation with. Fuck, I don't remember. I might have been talking to you about it earlier today. Shit, I don't even remember. We produce a show with 2 people. Essentially, you know, you're the Crowder in our situation, and I'm kind of a mix between what used to be Quarter Black and Gerald, right? That's the way I kind of see it. You drive the show along, and I produce and then add fun stuff.
yeah,
But he has, like, in the room with him while they're doing the show, there's like 5 or 6 people there. There's 3 people at least just running the production side of it, which is sound clips, changing, you know, cameras, and then inserting little video clips and shit like that. And then they do pictures of, like, their intern room or whatever. They have tons of employees out there. I'm like, how many people does it take to make this show? Which I'm not going to say it does not. It has a high production value.
yeah.
The cameras are good. The lighting's great. Like, all the sound is good. All this stuff. You don't need that many, dude, to do this. And then on top of that, you have all those people, and you only put out 4 shows a week. I get it. I get it, man. But if you are going to burn the midnight oil and do a single live stream where you sit there, you get drunk, and you talk shit, which I don't think they drink that much on the show. I don't remember.
They did
if
drink
he
that
does.
time.
But
Beers, I think they were drinking.
Why are you not getting up and going to fucking work the next day? I
Yeah.
did. I stayed up and I got hammered with Lauren Southern on IRL. Okay,
Yeah,
that was.
I watched that one too.
I got shithoused on Wednesday by accident. It was great, but it just bothers me that he cannot put out 4 shows a week if he has a single minor hiccup. And it's like, no, health stuff I get. That's why he's got Dave Landau. But I mean, come on, dude. It's poor form. Timcast is right up there the next day with Majid Nuaz.
Yes.
Powerful show. But I had a really good time watching the IRL cast when I did that, and then I had to go back and watch the non-commentated version. But it was pretty good, though, I will say, for watching the Timcast's first ever live stream kind of shared. They had a bunch of people on there. I think there was, because you had Ian, you had Seamus was there. Lauren Southern was there. You got,
the other Canadian guy.
The other Canadian dude. I can't remember his name.
And then Tim.
And then, of course, Lydia nowadays has got more involved for some reason. And so it's just...
some reason.
There's too many people there to be doing that. I think if they had about half the people, it'd actually be good.
He has
Crowder
a hard
talks
time.
too much.
I think Tim Pool especially has a hard time reining everybody in,
Yeah, he does.
You hear him like,
Especially
guys, like a lot, and they're just kind of continue to...
Yeah, especially certain guests are like that when they're in certain moods. I watch them religiously, so like I feel like I'm very intimately familiar with the characters on that show.
More so than I, yes. Yeah,
Which is
definitely the IRL side.
Yeah, the IRL side. And then you're there for the Cast Castle business.
Yeah.
But I usually watch those about like once a week, and then I
kinda rack 'em all
supercharge.
in, yeah.
Because they're really fun to just put on at the end of the night when you're smoking weed and just trying to vibe out. Because the music's always got this cool lo-fi stuff, and they're like skateboarding or printing shit or something. You know, they're talking now about that like 14-foot quarter pipe they're going to put on the side of the house. Bro.
Always building something new out there, too. Yeah.
Very, very inspirational stuff.
Yes.
But that was my viewing experience for that. I took a few notes. I got a few talking points that might hit throughout this thing, so it'll be really good.
We're just gonna use my Twitter as a guide. There's
That'll be-
certainly insert everything, but that's because I was live tweeting the vast majority of it. Most of the big points are in here. I have some other things that I wrote down that aren't here because obviously I was talking. Dax was still awake, so we're doing everything. I was forcing him to watch the State of the Union. So,
and then we had to rewatch it basically all week through clips on fucking TV and podcasts and shit.
So I won't say that it was full of lies, but it definitely had some lies, and it was filled with deception.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Yeah,
whether or not
I call it deception a lie.
Yeah, whether or not they were straight out lies, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a lot of half truths, a lot of leading comments, and things like that.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah, so I live tweeted the vast majority of them, so we can use my tweets and replies as a guide because there's a couple of exchanges here that I want to go over when that really didn't make any sense. So, and then after I was thinking about it, I thought about how fucking stupid that person was. So we're gonna talk shit about that a little bit because of how stupid this fucking point was.
Love that.
So the first point that I wanted to make, right, was something that I just talked about in the last segment, was the leadership of this country being able to support foreign militias while trying to disarm their own public is never going to cease to amaze me. Because in this speech, right, he opens up by talking about Ukraine, all this stuff, right? I'm tweeting here, glory to Ukraine. Like, he's talking about it. But then 10 minutes later, he's talking about, we show the video, deer and Kevlar vests and all these things. That's a misnomer that we just talked about. That's not what the Second Amendment is about. He's actively trying to disarm American citizens while sending your tax dollars to the Ukraine to, why do we say the Ukraine? I
don't know why.
Well, I don't know where that came from.
Because I believe, and this also, I believe, came from an IRL. Somebody was talking about it. It might have been Majid, but the idea of the term Ukraine is like borderlands. And so when they would refer to the borderlands, like the Ukraine, but Ukraine is also a nation
Now
with a
it's a
people
country.
and a culture and all this stuff, which is, I'm a relatively new nation, if I recall.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, former Soviet
World War
Union
II, I
state and all that. Yeah, I mean, right when when Russia was getting chopped up, I'm not going to pretend I don't know. But yeah, it's like a whole thing. And so it happens. John Podhoretz on the Commentary Magazine is terrible about it. He's always saying the Ukraine, and he finally started to catch himself lately. But yeah, I don't know. I used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
It was over there in the Ukraine.
The Ukraine. All right. Well, we'll do our best.
So
we'll get there.
It's one of those fun things to.
So, trying to disarm you while actively sending your tax dollars to Ukraine,
Millions of dollars too,
to arm their militias. We're actively doing that. So, it's never going to cease to amaze me. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we'll get more into that in the next segment.
Yep. And the only thing that I have written down here is, I have two things. One's going to be really good. The bullshit argument of the deer and Kevlar vest is so tired and ridiculous. I just can't stand it anymore. So, we'll get to that last point later. So
let me give you my first 2 cents on like the overall
Yes.
from what my experience was it. I felt that it was about 10 to 15 minutes of the State of the Ukraine speech, followed by 40-ish minutes of a campaign speech.
Yes.
That's the feeling I got from this thing. There was no accomplishments listed. There was nothing like that. Trump gets in there. He's like, we did this. And he's got a story for every point, blah, blah, blah. It's all showy and all this shit. This was not this. This was, hey, Ukraine's awesome. Power to Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. We're gonna help them out. We're shipping them weapons. We're doing all the things we can for liberty and freedom. And then also, here's all the things that I want to keep doing. Here's Build Back Better 2.0. Yeah, yep. Which is also, and I like the way Tim Pool kind of coined it. He says it's Diet MAGA. Diet MAGA.
Yes.
And that's 1,000% MAGA shit, dude.
Yes.
This is Make America Great Again all over. Except it's just a little different and called different things. I mean, make things at home. When you drop the border security line and all this, which we'll get into down the line. This was Diet MAGA, bro. This is what the new Biden campaign is.
Yes. Talked a lot about energy, obviously, which we'll get into a little bit later when we talk in kind of the third segment. We'll talk a little about American energy. I have some really good articles and some charts and shit like that. He talked a lot about inflation and how terrible the inflation was. Failed to mention at all the $7 trillion that we added to the deficit. Somehow claimed that he took money off of the deficit.
Yeah.
I don't know how that could possibly be true. And
it's not.
Then said that he was going to take another $1 billion off the deficit in the next year.
Yeah, by getting rid of tax cuts. I believe that's what it was. You get rid of the Trump-era tax cuts, which ballooned the deficit, and then... So we're gonna get rid of those. The rich are gonna pay their fair share, which means the deficit's gonna go down.
Yes, we're gonna pass this infrastructure bill, and it's not gonna be infrastructure week anymore. It's gonna be infrastructure decade. That's what it was. Infrastructure decade, right? And so I said, wait. I don't get infrastructure week anymore.
Nope.
Wait,
all gone.
Yeah,
we've had infrastructure week there for us since we started this podcast, bro.
Yes,
and now that it's gone.
I'm gonna miss it.
It's gone.
Talked about how many projects had been started, or not even started. How many had been announced? We're gonna do this project, this project, this project. I don't care about the announcements of projects. I care about the progress of projects. There is no progress yet. The money hasn't even been actually doled out from the infrastructure bill. There's still all it is at this point is the senators and representatives who got effective dog years in that bill and are able to go to their districts and say, this is what we're going to do here because I know that this money is coming, right? Yep. Even though there aren't specific dog years, they know where the money is going. It's been appropriated to different infrastructure projects.
Well, yeah.
I don't care about that.
They got that done. So now each one of them can go home and they have their campaign. They have their campaign for re-election right there. We got this. I fought for this in the infrastructure bill. It got passed. We fought for it. So elect me again. This is all designed to push people towards winning in the midterms.
Do you know a really good example that I know anybody who lives in Washington will be able to sympathize with this? A really good example of why I don't care about the projects being announced. I care about when they're finished because there's a bridge that I still pay for and I pay increasing amounts of money for every fucking year.
Yep.
That was supposed to already have been paid for. But for some reason, we need to pay more money every year for something.
Other transportation projects.
Isn't that interesting?
So, because what happened with in that particular case, what happened was they lied to us again, and they just there was nothing in law that said you had to stop charging people for this bridge once it was paid for, so they just keep it going. And then it's the same deal. Yeah,
and more because
everything goes expensive.
Now.
Hey man, if inflation is rising, inflation also affects the government, right? They need to get their extra money too. They need to protect their bottom dollar, and they need to make sure that paint on that bridge can be redone in the next 20 years or whatever the fuck. I don't know how it works, but they're just stealing money from us.
They were in the campaign part of this, right? When he's going over Build Back, and they renamed it something else, right? It was like Build America Better. Is that what it was?
It is. Building a better America.
Building a better America.
And then he coughed, which was really weird, right after saying,
continually
building a better
into the microphone.
Mind you, he's 100.
Turn your head, bitch.
I know.
Turn your head.
Who's the poor bastard that's got to clean that microphone at the end of the day?
Yes.
Is he going to be is that how Psaki got COVID? Biden coughed on the microphone and then got Psaki COVID.
Anyway. Also, isn't it hilarious how quickly the Democrats went from everyone needs an N95 so bad that we're going to ship them out to you to fuck it, we're going to kiss each other on the mouth on public television because coronavirus doesn't exist anymore. We're going to touch faces.
How
Joe
to do
Biden
this.
Put his forehead on someone else's forehead.
That was
Does
creepy.
COVID not exist?
No.
Is that not still real? It's okay that you don't need a mask, but should you really be putting your fucking face on someone else's face?
They
Should you
are
be doing
not
that?
afraid of COVID.
They don't care.
They're not afraid of it, obviously. I mean, and by all rights, they shouldn't. Especially
He put
now.
his face on someone else's face.
That was one of the bingo cards on the Timcast.
Yes, he
and
put
it
his
wasn't
face
until
on his
afterwards,
face.
because he didn't do that until after the speech was done. But he came over and gave the old intimate forehead to forehead goofiness, man, which is, can you imagine how bad that dude smells?
And on top of that, there was a vote yesterday,
Okay.
right, to repeal. It was against Joe Biden's vaccine mandate, right? Not a single Democratic senator voted for it.
No, of course not. Why
Not
would
one.
they?
You know, what is going on?
You know why?
We
Because their base loves it, man. We got protests going on in the state protesting the upcoming mask mandate removal. I mean, these people are. I mean, it's cult worship, dude. This has been their religion for this long, and now that quote unquote the science says you could take off your mask, they're not ready. They're not okay to do this. How many articles did we see over the last year about people not being ready to have the restrictions of COVID removed and get back to normal life? It's too scary.
Plus, you're prettier if you wear a mask. You're prettier.
Word.
You're more attractive, the article says.
I have seen some really good some memes coming out, especially like I follow a lot of like anti-Inslee Washingtonian pages, you know. And there's one that was like this gorgeous woman, you know, with the mask on like this, just beautiful eyes, all this stuff, and takes it off, and now there's a fucking mustache there. Guys, what you got to look forward to after COVID.
That's awesome.
It's it's a thing.
So in the campaign part of this, right, when
Yes.
he's going over all the things they're going to do, the Build Back Better, which we've gone over before, maybe I'll link to that. Let me write that down.
Because it's important to remember that when we talk about the Build Back Better 2.0 stuff, it's literally the same shit that we've been rehashing all year long and that people have voted against at this point.
That just failed.
Not in short number. Couldn't even get past, you couldn't even get the 51%.
Right.
All right. And so we're going to redo this again.
And the weird thing is, instead of Biden made a comment about people going back to the office and not working from home. Yes, he did.
He did.
Yes, he did.
But companies aren't going to do that.
There's a lot of people who prefer work from home. That's
Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
what were we talking about? Build Back Better. What the fuck was I saying?
Campaign speech.
Campaign speech. Yeah, I was just gonna make a point off of what you had said though.
About people they're in a cult, they don't want to take their masks off.
Too long ago.
Damn.
That's
I hate when
okay.
that happens.
So, I do. In this, it failed, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
when Build Back Better failed, there was a lot of argument and discussion of, well, if we break this up into some smaller bills or individual bills, then there's wiggle room. Like you can have more discussion about them. Many people said that. So instead of changing the approach, right? This is a larger political perspective that we're looking at right now, right? In the effort to try and get this passed, if you're part of the Biden administration, why would you not announce these things as individual projects, as where support was voiced for them already as individual projects? The child tax credit that we're going to talk about later. There's already a gang of people that said that they would vote for that. Mitt Romney proposed a different, larger version of the child tax credit. It was bigger.
Yep.
There's already Republican support for that. You can get these things passed individually. I would put my name on it. I would guarantee it. And at least one of these things you can get passed as an individual bill. The more you continue to try and pass these enormous fucking deficit shifting bills, what once would be a deficit shifting bill, right? $2 trillion packages. People don't want that anymore. We are paying $4 a gallon in Washington State, California $5 a gallon. People don't want, even if that's energy, it's only one thing, blah, blah, blah. That's what people correlate their costs to. And if you're going to continue to increase inflation, even if you don't want to acknowledge that your deficit spending is doing that, there's no escaping that. That's the reality of the situation. If I'm talking to the audience right now, if anyone is saying that to you, they're lying to you. The deficit is directly impacting inflation, 100%.
That's how that works.
It's not the only thing. It is 100% impacting inflation. The increases you have seen in the grocery store, at the pump, everywhere, are at least part due to the insane deficit spending that we just did over the last 3 years.
Yep.
We talked about it, or the last 2 years. We talked about it. There's reason for it. There's justification for a lot of it. 3 trillion, 8 trillion, it's too much.
Yep.
It was way too much.
Yeah.
So
we said it at the time. You cannot, inflation Too many dollars chasing too few goods. What happens when you pump trillions of dollars into the economy? Inflation is going to go up. We knew it was coming from the beginning.
So to me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, now that it's here, we need to recognize that, and we can't let these people sell us on this shit anymore. What's the answer? Right. What is the answer to inflation? Biden says, lower costs.
Lower your costs.
Lower costs, not wages, right? How do you lower costs? By subsidizing things with the government, by spending more government money, by putting more government dollars, or going overseas. But we're not going to do that. We're going to build at home anymore. Yes. So we're going to print more money. We're going to spend more money, and inflation is going to continue to rise. Just on that specific aspect alone, just the printing and the spending of deficit money, that alone is going to be detrimental to inflation. Not to factor in the rest of the problems that come with that we've done to each other. We've done this to ourselves over the last, 2.5, 3 years.
Right.
But that is definitely not going to make it better. It's only going to make it worse.
And to me, because I believe, and I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it until the end, because I believe that every government institution hates you and wants you to die.
Yep.
Right? To me, this refusal to shift strategy reads as they don't care. They don't really want to do this because they know it's not going to work. And they also know, as is evident in their shifting of strategy, I'm trying to untie my shoe right now. Everyone is why I'm looking like this. As is evident by their shift of
that looks even worse, to
in
be honest.
the SOTU speech itself, right? So much more conservative, so MAGA focused, so America first, right? They know that a red wave is coming in the midterms. They know that. There's no doubt about that. So if they know that they can't hope for more Democratic support in the Senate, and they can't hope for more Democrat support in the House, they know there's going to be more Republicans there. They're not shifting strategy because they don't care. They don't actually want this to pass. They have to signal that they want it to pass so that people will continue to support them, and they won't try, I don't know, so that they can try and make an attempt when the next run. I don't know what the hope could possibly be at this point, because they're not going to be impeached. He's not going to get kicked out. None of that is going to happen. But the complete refusal to shift strategy on getting any of these bills passed and shoving them as an omnibus tells me they do not care about you, and they do not care about these things.
That's exactly what I was going to say when you were talking about, like, well, why don't they just, at this point, they know what's popular and what's not. So why don't they do the individual programs?
They don't want to.
Bills? Because they can't. They don't want to, because every institution hates you and wants you to die. Why would they actually want to try to help you by doing the small little things that they maybe should be doing to actually help people? They don't want to do that. They hate us and they want us to die.
Yes.
So what do? They maintain that it has to be done in a giant omnibus bill. And then they run on that. And it's always, now is always the time.
Major shift. That's what it is now is the time for major shift and reform, and that's why now is the time. So these comments here. Lonesome Lady says, tried to gas up yesterday in a line of cars, and gas was $3.79 a gallon. Today was $4.30. Here,
Hot
Lenny,
dog.
Chevron is always the most expensive here, I think, across the board. Gas was over $4 a gallon here in Washington State. It was like $4.29, I think, at Chevron.
Don't ask me about diesel.
At Costco yesterday, it was $3.86, and the line of cars was into the actual parking lot of Costco. So that's for anybody who's not in this area. That's in our local Costco. That's like at least 7 cars in each line for it to get there. Zeke says, that's true, but the sanctions on Russia and Russia's new relationship with Saudi Arabia is going to really bring down the hurt on us. That is 1,000,000% true. Also, gas in Southern California is $6. And at $5, I just said is the state average. All I said was $5, but my reference to that is that $5 is now the state average in California. And so that's from $6 at the bottom to closer to $4 at the top, because the state is just so goddamn big that it's probably, I'm not going to say, I guess closer to $4, but still over $4 is going to get you at that $5 average in California for the first time ever.
Averages factor in there. But
yes,
I will say, and don't worry, guys, because we are definitely going to dive deeper into the oil and the energy and all that when we start talking about Ukraine and Russia.
100%.
So we'll just scroll that away for now.
Yeah, I did some digging
we'll touch
into
that
the
later.
Saudi Arabia and Russian thing.
Here's a wonderful little oil segue to get back to the speech here.
Oh, yes.
The point at which, he was talking about Russia and, the global, response and all this stuff. He was talking about how much extra oil they're going to release into the market, right?
Yes.
And it was like globally there was going to be a collective 60 60
60
billion
barrels.
million?
60 million barrels.
Yes,
Yeah.
put out, and then 30 from the United States strategic petroleum reserves, right? And we talked about this back in the day when he first was fucking around with the sanctions on Nord Stream 2. We had more oil problems and all this, that, and the other thing. And then the gas craze where people were going out and filling gasoline in bags and shit. We all remember that. It was not that long ago.
Yes.
I think it was beginning of
Oh, I
pandemic,
forgot
maybe,
about
right?
that. That's so funny.
Yeah. And then we learned at that point how many barrels of oil, roughly, it takes to run the United States per day. And it's roughly 20 million.
Yes.
Or, I don't know why I put billion. It's uncomfortable. But
Barrels,
20,
that's why.
There you go. And we go through 20 a day, but globally we're going to release 90. So that would do America a few days of oil. I mean, that sounds like what's up. So
it's just such a big number. You know,
It's-
just 60
it's
million is just
so
a big
big.
number. So they're just throw it
it
out
is,
there
dude.
like it's gonna. Well, it is.
It's gonna make such a huge. It sounds really good. 60 million barrels, 30 million barrels. It's gonna be good. That's what we're doing to fight against your rising prices at the pump.
You're $80 a month.
$80 a month.
Joe Biden said that.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, we are going to try and shift away from this and push to subsidize more electric cars, and we're going to build out the electric charging plants so that you don't have to worry about the $80 a month to your bill. Okay, so I got gas yesterday at Costco, which is the cheapest in the area, $3.86. I put $45 in my gas tank, and I got a half a tank.
Yeah,
like maybe half tank. I was at a quarter, and I got to under 3/4. So maybe. For $45.
Yep.
I had to drive a 2011 Toyota Tundra. It's not an enormous truck. It's not, and that will do me.
It ain't a 7.3 liter diesel.
No. So
112 the other day.
We used to be able to fill up Jordan's car. She drives a Camry for like 35.
Yeah.
And that's now you get, over half a tank, 5/8 of a tank for like 35.
You know what's funny is I remember back when I was in high school driving the Volkswagen Jetta to
Yeah.
high school, and it was $20 if I had waited to get down to 3/4 to fill up. $20. That got me a long ways. $112 the other day to fill up the truck. $112.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's not good, man. It's not good. I don't know. Oh, anyways.
So in all this shifting of energy that he talked about, right?
Yeah.
In we're going to natural gas and electric and solar, and no mention of nuclear energy at all.
No.
Right? Not a single mention of nuclear energy at all.
Until Russia said, you motherfuckers need to talk about this.
I remain unconvinced. I don't understand. You don't really care about clean energy if you don't want to try and invest in nuclear energy.
Yeah.
You don't actually care. You can't convince me. It's ridiculous. It is by far, obviously barring fucking nuclear spills and shit, it is by far the cleanest form of energy that's available. Is nuclear fucking energy.
Yep.
Invest all of these billions of dollars you're talking about. Put that into nuclear energy. A good portion of it. Figure out how to make it not explode, right? Because, again, the Chernobyl incident was a pressure test that they did where someone fucked up.
Yeah.
It wasn't a natural operation where things got terrible.
And things would have gotten fixed, too, if they were not under the Soviet system at the time. Because the fear about that had a massive factor. This wasn't like a Fukushima where it was a totally natural disaster.
It was a tsunami. Yeah, and again, in Fukushima, it was a tsunami.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they fucked up and they just accidented it, and now there's a meltdown, and we don't know what to do about it, And it wasn't even a meltdown there. There's a problem with the water. They got to store all the water, and there's enormous basins of irradiated water that they just have
hanging out
all over the place because they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So,
but we could even factor in avoiding those things if we were to do it right now.
But they don't want to. They don't care about that, right? And it's not like there isn't good-paying jobs in nuclear energy. Certainly there are less, and that's not to say we should only be investing in nuclear energy. But there's all kinds of infrastructure that needs to be done. The plants still need to be built, right? Biden will hand out wool sweaters before he promotes nuclear energy. You are goddamn right, Muslim. You are goddamn right. He will. Yes. It doesn't make any sense. So I will not believe anybody who tells me they care about clean energy and green energy, but doesn't talk about nuclear. What?
Okay. All this talk about nuclear energy, bro. I just was like, oh my God, that's what it was. So earlier this week, there was a story that came across some of the local things about an active shooter situation at the Hanford nuclear site, which is in Eastern Washington, right?
Okay.
Right. And I was like, oh my God, I heard about that, but It's relatively local. News is, there's not going to be articles on it when I'm seeing it first come across social media and all this shit. So I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I didn't really follow up with it until just now. You started thinking about it, and I was like, well, yeah, we could build these nuke sites, but then we have active shooters at them, and then it's terrible. But it turns out that because it was within like an hour or something, they had the all clear or whatever. Turns out it's a fucking nail gun that somebody was like, shooting, and then so they active shooter and bing
That's
bang
awesome.
boom, and then everything was fine.
That's
So
awesome.
it turns out to be not a story.
Um,
Oh god.
so Joe Biden also said, what do I have here? What's this one that I'm trying to look at? Talked about how many jobs they created, right? We've created so many jobs over the last 2 years.
Oh, this one
Workplace participation is still lower than it was in 2019.
by
They're-
not a lot, by not a little bit, a fucking lot. There's millions of jobs we still have not
Yes.
gotten.
So not only does the government not create jobs, which we have said a million times before, right? The government, in very few instances, creates jobs, right? Very few instances.
The only jobs that they directly create are military jobs and then government bureaucracy jobs.
Yes.
That's it. There's no
They're-
private. That's it.
No, the government does not create private sector jobs.
No.
At all, ever, right? So it's hilarious that we talk about this all the time. But yeah, also the argument of we've created this many jobs in this time. When drive through your town and tell me if there are not stores that are at limited hours because they don't have the staff, right?
Yeah.
There's
Drive
even
through
Burger
your
King and
town
shit
and
like
tell
that.
me how many fewer stores you have left.
Yes.
That'll be really it.
And whether or not those fewer stores are still looking
Are
for
still
jobs.
looking for
They're
jobs, 'cause
still
they
looking
are.
for employees.
Yep.
Yes.
Every fast food joint in town has got a sign out there. Help wanted, immediate hirings. There's still, like at McDonald's, I think, you could still get the sign-on bonus.
Burger King sign-on bonus.
Word.
Yeah. So again, when they talked about Joe Biden said that to fight inflation, people just need to lower their costs, right? Just lower your costs.
Just lower costs.
That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
You're asking businesses to just take a cut because of governmental fuckery, and that doesn't make any sense. We want you to not only lower your costs, also pay people more money because you are just traditionally, I'm just going to make the claim, just traditionally not making enough money. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon are doing just
man.
fine.
Amen.
Aren't they? Lonesome Lenny's base today. Dude, fucking base Lenny. We're out here. Change your name to base Lenny. No, so there's no solution to it other than, like you said, subsidies. People are just going to, if there isn't a way for you to lower your costs, the only other option is to lower your subsidies because they're going to increase your taxes. You certainly can't pay anybody any less money because they're trying to talk about shifting the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Which came up during the speech too, by the way.
So
He said we need to hurry up and do that. We need to do $15 an hour again for minimum wage.
explain to me, sir, how one should lower their costs.
Yeah.
Right? Just make less money. Make less profit.
Well, the other angle that I hear from the conservative commentariat is that's code for price controls. That's code for, okay, you can only sell insulin for this amount of dollars, and if it costs you X amount more, we subsidize that, but you can't have it cost any more than this. It's a price control. Like Ben Shapiro talks about that. Some of the more neocon-y, older school conservatives are talking about that possibly meaning price controls, which is something the Democrats have generally over history have enjoyed using during their times in power.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of what that could be. But either way, how has anybody who thinks it's a great idea for government to lower cost should take a look at the government's ability to lower cost at the university level and tell me how that's worked out for the American people.
Well,
One of the things that he ran on in his campaign was something directly related to cutting that cost down by like the whole thing. And we're never going to see it, obviously, but that's what we're talking about. We're cutting costs. It's government subsidies in my mind anyways.
I think a good point to your favor is just on the way here. I'm not sure if it was a bill or an executive order, but in Washington State, to limit insulin copays to $35 a month, right? Which I'm not arguing is a bad thing.
Because it's drafts. I know
Right.
diabetes guys.
But
that have,
it is
man, it's
that is
insane.
a government implemented cap on what you can pay on what you can charge effectively for insulin, right?
Yes.
Joe Biden hit on this same point. A hilarious thing, hilarious, tragic, depending on whether or not you have fucking diabetes, is that
Not funny.
Donald Trump had already placed a healthcare order when he was in office to lower the cost of insulin that Joe Biden rescinded when he got into office.
Yeah.
For him to now essentially do the exact same thing, right? And this is an article, let's see, this is policymed.com. This is just the first one that I pulled up here. One of the final healthcare actions made by the Trump administration has been rescinded by the Biden administration. On December 23rd, 2020, the Trump administration finalized a rule that directed the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to take action to require that federally qualified health centers make insulin and injectable epinephrine available to certain patients at 34B prices. The Biden administration delayed the rule twice before it became effective on July 20th, 2021, and the first opportunity for HHS to impose the requirements of the rule would have been through grant awarded at fiscal year 2020. So while the rule has been effective since July, it is yet to be implemented. In the Federal Register notice rescinding the rule, HHS noted that the rule would have resulted in excessive administrative costs and burdens on health centers. Specifically, the agency took issue with the requirement that health centers would need to create and maintain new practices to determine patients' eligibility to receive drugs at or below the discounted price paid by health centers plus a minimal fee. HHS also noted its belief that the implementation of the rule would have resulted in, quote, reduced resources available to support critical services to health center patients, including those who use insulin and injectable epinephrine.
Okay, so before we dive into the contents of that, can I just say how funny this is? Right. So Trump put in this policy, right?
Yes.
It actually never actually took place. It never got to the point at which it was rescinded before it could be funded.
Yes.
So
Delayed twice and then allowed to
just
take place.
remember that when people talk about like their accomplishments as politicians, we got this passed, we got this passed, we got this passed. Some of that shit is going to get overturned the minute the next guy gets in there, and it's never going to actually have been implemented.
Yeah.
That's wild, man, when you think about it.
And that's all. We don't have to go too deep in that because that's really all that.
Yeah.
I just pulled that up just to have an article to back up the fact that that happened, that Donald Trump did this already. Joe Biden delayed it twice, and now that there was an opportunity, they're going to do it. Yes, they do. They do not care about you. They care about the political win.
Yep.
They care about the points.
They
so
hate you and want you to die.
yes, Joe Biden talked about the Pfizer pills. Right, we are going to order. We've already ordered. Just a historical amount of these fucking pills from Pfizer. And isn't it crazy that gun manufacturers are the only industry that can't be sued for liability? Oh wait. Oh wait.
Except for
the people that we just let inject foreign substances into your body, actually help force inject foreign substances into your body. The people that we're helping withhold data from you now because there's an active lawsuit against Pfizer because they're whistleblowers that's saying that they fucked up their testing, that there was improper testing practices. Brandon Guerrero just sent me a thing yesterday that there are another set of whistleblowers from Pfizer that are saying that they've had data for what am I consequences, not consequences, but like severe side effects for children since day one and never talked about it. They just went forward with it anyway. So, but should this happen, should this be proven let me correct myself. When this is proven that they knew that it was going to hurt you and they pushed it through anyway, you will not have the ability to sue. You don't have the power. The liability waiver already exists.
And I should add on to that by saying this, that's the first time that they've been allowed to do this.
Ever.
And I hate to tell you, their track record when it comes to like getting sued for malpractice, it ain't great. So the likelihood that you would want to be able to sue somebody like Pfizer and then now not be able to, that should also be remembered.
Yes. Excuse me. So
this ain't a company that's been goody two shoes, man.
Oh, it's all about money.
These are dirty companies that have been manipulating people forever, and now the government has decided that in this particular case, where the only time the government has actually said you have to do this, now you have no recourse.
None. No civil cases.
Nope.
No
nothing.
Nope.
There will be
No
no
class
crappy
actions.
Fox News commercials
No.
with a class action lawsuit in 2 years. That's not going to happen.
Nope. So my tweet for this one, I said, I'm so glad we're making it easy for Pfizer to make more money. After people were canceled for mentioning ivermectin and COVID-positive patients weren't even told about the antibody treatments. As I told you, it's anecdotally, right, in other stories, there are people that were turned away for being the wrong color, people that were told, well, if you were a different race, then you could get it here because we have to dole it out in an equitable fashion, and we've already given it to too many white people today. Jordan's dad wasn't even told the antibody treatment existed when him and his wife both tested positive. Didn't even mention it. We had clinics here at the time. Wasn't even mentioned, right? And so our buddy Josh, right, I went to school with him. He said the thing I don't get about this point is that Big Pharma gets significantly more money from monoclonal antibody treatments than a single vaccine shot, both paid by taxpayers. And I said then focus on the ivermectin part. But the point of the antibodies, because ivermectin. Now we're pulled off YouTube. Stream is gone.
Oh, not anymore. The Queen took it and then
right,
posted about
right.
it on Instagram by accident.
Ivermectin, there's no. The patent on it is right now, so it can be made and sold for cents a pill.
Yep.
And
Trenton pajamas.
That's right. So there is no financial incentive for anybody to make that. But this new COVID pill or the new Pfizer pill, that's still under. What the fuck did I just say?
I love it.
Yes.
So awesome.
So I said, but the point of the antibodies is they helped and people literally weren't told about them and were turned away for being the wrong race so that government could push vaccines.
Yep.
Josh said, definitely not enough talk about preventative measures for COVID besides masks and vaccines. They're important, but there's also more that they can do. And I said, they didn't just refuse to talk about other measures. They boldly and actively lied about them and removed people from social media for even bringing them up and are now promoting a Pfizer drug that essentially does the same thing, right?
They were giving them out.
Pfizer and not telling the public. 100%.
Yep.
100%. Huh. It was made by Merck. And ivermectin was created by Merck, who was working with Pfizer to make these pills. What are we talking about?
I wonder what's in them. I wonder if there's something like
they're antivirals. They're essentially the same thing as ivermectin. They're just for a more specific use instead of a generalized one like ivermectin. And part of the reason billions of doses of ivermectin have been taken since its creation is because it can be used for so many different monoclonal anti-fusion or infusion was available only to people who knew about it and requested it. 100%. When I got COVID, literally said nothing. My doctor literally didn't give me anything that I could take. No, you could take more vitamin D, quercetin, zinc, nothing. It was just,
whatever. Write it out.
If it gets worse, come back. What is that? That's not a way to approach anything.
Yeah. Well, and the fact too that like the monoclonal antibody treatments were actually being barred in Florida by the federal government because they didn't want people letting them out. But and that's not a good incentive, man. It's like remember we talked about this a long time ago, but like the emergency use authorizations are only given if there are not other treatments available. Right. So they have to make sure that no other treatments can be available. Otherwise the drugs can't be fast-tracked through emergency use. So, that's why ivermectin couldn't exist. That's why the antibodies couldn't exist because if there is another treatment, and you guys can look that up. That's not we're not making that up. No, man, like none of this is made up. This is all shit.
Emergency use can only be given if there is no other possible treatment. Yep. And there were treatments available. There were other options. And so they had to just pretend like they didn't exist so that they could force the vaccine on people.
Yep.
Effectively force for YouTube's sake, effectively force the vaccine on people.
Well, and in their defense, just slightly, the simple fact is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what drugs may or may not work on something that you haven't tested yet. So where do you start?
If I'm willing to take it,
do I start
that's
with
where
an
you start.
anti-parasitic drug called ivermectin? Probably not. But for whatever some people did, they felt in their doctoral professional opinion, they've used it for whatever things. They implemented it, and then like the Frontline Care Alliance doctors and stuff like that, they came up with these protocols and they ran them, but somebody had to test them. And as soon as there started to be any kind of indication that they might be useful, possibly, you can't talk about that because you're going to jeopardize the fast track of the vaccine.
Not to mention the fact that they were using him in Israel, which was, that was essentially
the test case.
That was the lab, was Israel. That was where we were finding everything out, was Israel, right? And not for the creation of the virus, but to study it, to the effects and everything. They were using
weird.
It
seems like a weird line to walk when you say, hey, The Jewish state. Let's
Ooh,
test
yeah.
it out on you guys.
It was also India. You know, there were entire states in India that was part of their protocol was to take ivermectin.
Yeah,
At
they
that
get those
point,
whole packages of things, man.
At that point, when you have multiple nations that are taking this, and you're still completely ignoring it, you notice Dr. Fauci has disappeared from the daily news cycle.
Oh, dude, it was like click, he's out.
Yes,
you're done, buddy.
Yeah, as soon as soon as the mandate started to be rolled back, he was no longer nowhere to be seen. He's now taken his millions of dollars and he's rolled back to his estate, and I'm sure he has multiple, and is now going to do whatever he wants until the next pandemic comes up, and hopefully we're old people, you know, and he is just a preserved head in a jar like in Futurama, and they're able to put him up on the podium, and he's like, yo, I fucked with AIDS, I fucked with COVID.
Dude, he'd be the real life Al Gore character.
Yep. He's like, and now that Schmovid is here, I definitely know what to do.
Yes.
And it's going to be handled. Just give me your rights for like 3 years and we'll call it good.
Yep.
You know? So it was after this that, excuse me, Joe Biden started. Here we go. Just
yeah, you were too
the
fire
whistle.
there for a minute. It was too good. Your body's like, no.
So this is when Joe Biden starts talking about the Second Amendment, right? That these things that I'm announcing, an assault weapons ban, magazine ban, these things are not, excuse me, violations of the Second Amendment. These are, reasonable. And why do you need a magazine with 100 rounds? Because do you have Kevlar vests, right? So I got into an interesting interaction with someone at this point. So when I said, because then he quickly turned to voting is the most fundamental right.
That's
right?
what it was.
And
yeah.
started talking about, we need to pass this and we need to pass this, and this is what we're doing next. So I said, voting is not the most fundamental right. And someone whose Twitter name is, I'm going to need you to log off.
Yeah.
Because I went and looked at his Twitter. He's not following anybody. His only followers are like...
That's what's called a troll account.
Right? So he said, yes, it's up there. What do you think it is? And I said, it's up there for sure. I would say the right to defend myself and my family is more fundamental. He then said... The Second Amendment wasn't in the original Constitution, though. Voting was. Amendment are changes to the Constitution, so I would put voting over it since it was there first. And my response was, we aren't talking about amendments. We're talking about fundamental rights, to which I would say the natural right to self-defense is more fundamental. The natural right to self-defense and the idea existed long before our founding documents, because I think the first written mention of it is in like 1620 something.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very old idea. The natural right to self-defense is a very old idea.
Oh, yeah.
It has been expanded as technology has been expanded, and now that we don't cut each other apart with swords, it involves guns now.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Just a different version of it.
This is when it really goes off the rails, right?
Great.
He says, then healthcare is a fundamental right as well. You'd take your family and kids to a medical professional if they needed it. Anything to protect their lives/health, am I right? If taking care of your family is fundamental, then GOP needs to pass free healthcare for all U.S. citizens.
There's a big disconnect there, buddy. That's not the same thing.
I said, I'm not exactly sure what your point is. Considering a doctor's visit, self-defense is a bit of a reach in my opinion. But if that's the route you want to take to get to whatever healthcare plan you want, I say go for it. Because I don't see in any world other than trying to derail it to, I assume that you want to take people's healthcare away and you don't support universal healthcare, because that's obviously what this is saying, is he's assuming that I don't support this, or else why would you bring this up?
Yeah.
Right? Which is a ridiculous point. If anybody has listened to the show at all, I don't believe in universally paid healthcare from the government, but I do believe that people deserve the ability to go to the fucking doctor and not pay an arm and leg. I'm not even
reasonable exchange for goods and services.
Yes.
A working form of capitalism.
So he never responded to that. He just liked it, right? Which means obviously...
that means I'm out.
Yes.
Thanks.
So I then started to think about this more, and I said to Jordan, I said, also, this guy's a fucking idiot anyway, because he's talking about voting being a right. Voting, and I'm going to plant my flag in this right now. I'm going to put it right here. I don't care the way that it's defined in these documents or anything. This is the way that it breaks down in my mind. Voting is a privilege given to you by the government. If the government does not exist, if there is no power structure there, what are you voting for? what are you possibly going to vote for? I would 1,000% say your right to free speech, your right to express yourself, and your right to affiliation, those are rights.
Yeah.
You have those rights. What are you voting for if there is nothing, if there isn't a structure there? Someone has to give you that power to vote.
Yeah. Or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
That's not a right.
You don't have the right to vote in the military.
Voting is
That's
a privilege.
not how that works.
Voting
right?
is a privilege.
Yeah.
So
it is.
also that guy's a fucking idiot
And
because
it's a
voting is not a
governmental
right.
structure. Yes.
That is a privilege the government gives you.
That would be, in my mind, I would call that a civil right. We, as Americans, have the civil right to vote, right? Every American has the civil right to do that, and it's protected by what other fundamental right? The second one.
Amendment.
See, it's the same argument that say, that the Second Amendment is there to protect the First. It's there to protect all of them. That's how that works. The right to vote in America is protected by the Second Amendment. It means the government cannot infringe on your right to have a say, or your freedom to associate with the governmental structure that we have. So the Second Amendment's there to protect the voting right as well as free speech and shit. I mean, it's a simple argument if anybody wants to think about it. I mean, what gives you the ability to protect yourself to the best that you possibly can against infringements on or threats against your life and your liberty? The Second Amendment does. That's how that works. It's a dumb argument. I love stupid trolls. Stupid trolls are the best trolls because they generally offer a great amount of comedy to everyone that experiences their wrath. Boy, it's not like Michael Malice. Michael Malice hurts people's feelings.
I love Michael Malice.
He's my favorite. He just destroys people. So, one of the other things that really got me during the speech was this again brought up idea of the 4 meat packing plants being completely responsible for high food prices and things like that. There's just, I don't know why it's the 4 meat packing plants that are part of this inflation problem, and why it is that they keep bringing that up. I don't quite understand where this is coming from, because then he points to it as if it's a monopoly that sets prices too high and it screws everybody. If you're a farmer, you have to sell it to one of these 4 groups, and blah blah blah. So he tries to make the argument that it's monopoly when you just said there's 4, which, mind you, is not a lot, but there's only one Google still. Right. I mean, there's monopolies that you guys are okay with essentially having, but there's 4 giant meat packing plants. I know of the local butcher that I know where farmers and stuff get their meat butchered. And I know where they do that. And it's an approved place of the FDA and all that stuff that is licensed to do that. They don't have to go to the 4 big meat packing plants. That's not how any of that works.
And I think that there are some, I don't know enough
it's
about
a weird deal, but I'm tired of hearing it. That's the problem. But anyways,
so let's see here. I'll go back to the main feed. Talked about the opioid epidemic, right? We have to beat the opioid epidemic. And he spoke in general about stopping things at the border. And there was even mentions of securing the border, which is when you were talking about the MAGA things. I'm talking about building some type of wall or something, actually securing it.
We got to secure our border.
All these different technological things, almost like what Donald Trump was talking about, because
Except
he said
this is not
some places,
not a wall.
And if you remember, we're going to speak truth here.
Yes,
right?
You have to say it.
If you remember, Donald Trump said there should be a wall, and in some places it doesn't make sense to have a wall, so there will be other things there. He did say that. Whether anybody wants you to know that or not,
I remember.
He did say that. So it's almost like he's saying the same thing that Donald Trump said, is just secure the border in the way that best fits the geological location.
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? So,
now, I don't think for a single second he's actually serious about that.
No.
Not even a little bit. There's a red wave on the horizon. I got to make sure I say something, that's not as hardcore, progressive, and psycho as possible. But that's when, on the stream I was watching, Lauren Southern at this point was schmammered. And she jumps up like, based Biden, and she falls over and shit. Oh my God.
Yeah. And
I was blown away when I heard him say that.
He spoke in generalities about stopping the influx of drugs to the border, but
Yep.
failed to mention China, who specifically imports the vast majority of fentanyl and illegal opioids into this country
Isn't that crazy?
through the southern border.
Yeah.
Through the southern border, right? Because I feel like there's a huge disconnect for people. You know, when they think about drugs coming from the southern border, they're just like these fucking Latin Americans.
Yeah.
It's like, well, kind of. They're definitely not cooking it all up, right?
Yep.
China, because they can't, they do, but can't send all of it on boats, right? They have to sneak it in other ways. It comes through the border. They work
Land, sea, and air, man.
They work with other groups of, with other cartels, and they push the drugs through the border. Why would they have Chinese people come to the southern border? That looks awfully weird, doesn't it? Why is there a whole group of Chinamen coming in from the southern border? That's
Give
weird.
the game away.
Yeah, that's really weird. So obviously you give it to a bunch of people who look like they're from South America and you send them through the goddamn border.
Well, and I mean, just the sheer fact that logistically it's much easier. Just do business with someone overseas whose business it is
Yes.
to traffic drugs and people and all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
If I want to get my drugs into America, who do I talk to? I talk to the cartels. That's the business hookup. That's called the black market. It's not just the cartels. It's not just China. It's this whole illicit marketplace that happens. And yeah, no, there's what was it? Close to 2 million apprehensions on the border last year or something like that.
Let's see.
I know it was over a
Migrant
million.
encounters for fiscal year 2022 are already up 126% compared to 21, which was the
hot
highest
dog.
year on record. 220,000 gotaways since October.
Gotaways.
Since October.
Wow,
Gotaways.
interesting. And that's not even to count the migrants that are being trafficked by the government and directly and flown into airports in the middle of the night all over the country.
In
'Cause
which
that's the
people
thing.
there are
That's
saying
that's
your
factual,
government
by
is
the way.
fucking you over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Then he talked a little bit about Ukraine. This is the final written point that I have here.
Okay.
And then if there's anything else you want to bring up, we can go over that. He talked about how they're going after the assets of Russian oligarchs, right? They're going to start
Yes.
taking the yachts and, the properties and things like that, right?
Mhm. And that conversation's been continuing
And
since he said it.
so I have kind of a big question for you,
Yes.
right? I'm having
don't
trouble understanding what the difference is between a Russian
this is going.
oligarch and Nancy Pelosi or any member of Congress on either side of the aisle that happens to, I don't know, have immense amount of stock and investment in defense companies, that happens to make millions of dollars if we were to go to war, that happens to make millions of dollars when other companies shut down, or when when I am not able to buy a house because enormous hedge funds and investment firms are buying every fucking house in existence.
I got a nice ad from BlackRock the other day on Twitter,
I'm
by the way.
just having a really hard time understanding what the difference is between the people who made money and invested in the defense industries during the Afghanistan war and the Russian oligarchs whose money is inexplicitly tied with the Russian government at this point. And I'm not saying they don't. Some of them do and some of them don't condone it, but you involved your money in the Russian government. So now your money is the government money. So when Russia goes to war, your money happens to be the money that is spent because it is the government money. And I'm not saying that they don't want it that way, but
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
The difference is there's only one difference. They're foreign nationals. The simple fact that there's this problematic thing that we have in the United States as citizens, that the government can't just come seize your property just because they don't like where you're from.
Right.
That's the only difference. Whereas these are foreign nationals, and so their property is apparently up for grabs. So we don't act like that. Would be the only difference I could see. And I don't know how I feel about that, by the way. It feels weird to me. Like, as a human, I feel like every human should have the right to, like, a proper trial and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to be able to, like, defend. I want somebody to defend their right to have that property, and then I want it to
own
lose.
shit.
Yeah, and then, you know, what if it's U.S.? I don't know how that works, man. Like, it's weird, but I feel really uncomfortable about it.
And
But that's the
please-
only difference I could find between the two. they're not us.
No one mistake this as support for the Russian Federation or for Russian oligarchs, because it is not, right? It is very much a question of our own leadership that I just don't understand.
So much about this stuff is uncomfortable. Because
The Russian oligarchs have mega dollars hidden the U.S. government will never find. 1,000%. We will talk about that in segment number 3, Lenny.
Yeah.
Don't doubt that.
We also have
the war
billions
chest,
of
they're
dollars
calling it.
tied up in multiple other countries all over the world too. It's a weird deal.
Yeah. So again, I definitely don't support what Russia is doing because I'm a liberty-minded person. I support the sovereignty of all people. Right. Ukraine is a sovereign nation, so I do not support the infringements that Russia is making on them. But I'm just failing to understand. Again, I'm not asking again, but just posing as a general statement, failing to understand the differences between Russian oligarchs
and Nancy Pelosi,
whose companies have been nationalized, right? And federal employees who have purchased stock in companies and have then effectively forced those companies to deal mostly with the federal government and can dictate what they do with their stake in that company, or their husband's stake in that company, or their wife's stake in that company.
Donovan, are you insisting that Nancy Pelosi is an oligarch? She is a duly elected representative of the people of San Francisco, all right, and California.
Right.
I forget she's a senator, but California. That she's not an oligarch. She is she may have all the other telltale signs, but she was duly elected. I insist, good sir. This is blasphemy.
She definitely won't have any governmental sway at all when she's no longer the active representative in the House. No sway at all. The dollars won't make a difference.
You are very true there, because she will probably die in the chair.
Oh God!
Okay?
You're right.
Did you see her Did you see?
It's not
I
good.
don't. What was that? That was uncomfortable for everybody.
Yeah, so that's the last written point that I have there for for the State of the Union.
Oh my God, that's good. The other things other than the overall shit show that was, because it's always interesting to kind of have some fun and like note all the weird little gaffes that are going to happen, or how many times is Chuck Schumer going to accidentally stand up to clap and then the Republicans boo, and Nancy Pelosi is going to do some weird shit with her hands and look like she's like a crack baby. I don't Skeletor crack baby. Kamala Harris is going to mouth Ukrainian when the president calls the Ukrainian people Iranians. That's just those types of fun things. The Democrats, I think, probably for the first time ever, actually got up and chanted USA, USA, which is exactly what happened during Trump's last two, I think, State of the Union.
Nationalist, I'm pretty
sure.
It
was like a weird deal. But the other things they had were like the child tax credit and the PRO Act, which I think we're going to talk about in segment number 4 later on today. I've actually not really been. I still don't know that much about the PRO Act, so I'm really excited to hear about it and talk about it. But I also want to I don't want people to be buying into this stuff. If some of the stuff that Joe Biden said during the State of the Union sounded good to you, just take it all with a heaping dose of salt, because these State of the Union addresses are not actually. I mean, did you find out what the state of our union is? No, you did not. The letter that he
strong
handed,
because we are strong.
He said it. That's right.
Go get him.
Go get him. I forgot about the go get him. Why?
Yeah, he said a bunch of other shit after that. It
Weird
was almost
shit,
like
dude.
he got wrapped up in like how hyped the room was, and he just was going. Like
that was a hyped room.
I mean,
for him.
For him.
Yeah, that works.
For as many people were there was a lot, very limited crowd that was allowed there. Nancy Pelosi, I guess, was like deciding who could and couldn't be there. So
she is the queen of the Senate.
Queen of the
the House.
Yeah, so
Speaker of the House. Because she's responsible for most of the rulemaking.
Yeah, and it was it was almost like he got wrapped up in it and going and said a bunch of shit and then
I'm the king.
Go get him. Go get who? What are you talking
about? I don't want to go get nobody.
Yeah,
dude.
what do you mean? So
I will say I'm glad he did Old Man Joe. He was hopped up on enough drugs to get him through the speech relatively quickly. Did not pause for too many applause breaks and things like that. So it was over and done with within an hour, essentially.
Yeah.
which was very nice. Trump could go on for hours,
Yo, he
and
would
it
get after
drove
it.
me nuts. Although there's a couple times I got swept up in the emotion of patriotism.
He gets you. He was a good talker.
He
Donald
did,
Trump
yeah,
was
he did, yeah.
I mean, certainly much better than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Donald Trump had his own quirks and stuff, the way that he would say industry, like some things like that, and like he obviously talked in like a very exaggerated manner. But
Super weirdo.
if you were in the right room, especially if you like had a beer or two, if you had a couple of beers,
I'd be in.
and you
I'd
were
get after it a little bit.
feeling real America. You just happen to be feeling real America that day.
I mean, I have.
I could
Shit.
definitely.
I actually, I'm like, wait a minute, damn it! I have been in those points, like elk camp this year when it was really hammer time. You remember how hammer time that got?
Yes.
I'm just really glad I drunkenly texted you and no one else.
I'm the best person that you.
It was great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You were probably really confused and thought it was about you until I said some weird cat or some pet name that
it was awesome.
You were not familiar with.
It was awesome.
But all them dudes up there were cranking like this, like the "Let's Go Brandon" song was out at the time, the Multiple, and then like a bunch of like hardcore like redneck patriot shit. Like,
yes.
And like, man, you get the drinks flowing and all that, and the "Fuck Joe Biden" flag was flying on up in the middle of the mountain. Everybody's getting hammered, and I was definitely like, I was entranced by the cult, man. I was in it for a minute. It was fun, And then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh God, what did I do last night? I got all Trumpian, bro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you feel good about the State of the Union, bro? You feel like we're strong?
I don't. I am very concerned. I was in my upsetness this morning talking to Jordan about the new gun laws and stuff like that. And moving and whatnot. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore because when the Civil War starts, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be in this state when the Civil War starts. I'm not interested. I don't want to have to try and fight.
You want to wake up surrounded one morning?
Yeah, and I don't want to have to try and fight to get to somewhere where I'm accepted. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to try and establish myself after we're already doing the divorce thing. Like, I don't want to do that,
Well, because because at that point, somebody's going to have to start proving their loyalty to sides and things, and you kind of already want to be where you want to be. I can get that. Now, let me ask you this real quick.
Turn the tables.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. Sometimes I got to participate. I don't want to be too much of a Gerald. After the State of the Union speech, looking at how divided we Americans as a society believe we are, do you think any of the division? Did we get any crossovers? Do we get any more people that think we're not as divided? Or do we think we maintained about a neutral thing after this? Or do you think maybe even possible we might be more divided after the State of the Union speech?
I think there are a lot of people that are still very easily swayed by what they say up there. By that, I mean the people who work on Capitol Hill. Right? They still very much believe everything that they have to say. And so when they hear Biden say those things, they still believe him. I mean, his approval rating went up like 10 points after the State of the Union address. I don't know. I don't know because you have to believe the things that he's saying.
That's a weird. Yeah, you do. You got to be a member of the cult.
Yes. And so I think that the people he was losing, when they were feeling like he was giving up on Build Back Better and all this stuff, and now they're seeing him double down, and and they're saying to themselves, well, he has to rebrand it so he can trick the Republicans into voting for it.
That's right.
Because that's what they're saying to themselves. It has to be done because now is the time for big instrumental change in America. And if it doesn't come in one big felt swoop, then it's never going to happen, which is probably the exact opposite of the truth. There are so many Republicans that if you presented them with a refined, individualized package on one program, especially, like I said, something like child tax credit, that Republicans have voiced their support for, you're going to get it passed. It will get passed, especially, this is one point that I forgot to make. Joe Biden talked about all these programs, all this new spending, no cuts, not one spending cut anywhere. No. The only solution is more taxes, right?
But
that's ridiculous.
Not unless you make over 400,000.
regardless, right? Because
Which is a lie.
Because to me, it doesn't matter. Because it is a lie. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, right? No talks about any cuts. No taking away of any programs. Not even any defense spending, which you would assume as a Democrat would be part of the jam, right? Nothing. No cuts at all. Only increases.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot run the government this way. When you're talking about inflation, when you're admitting in this speech that inflation exists and it's damaging people's pockets, even if you have no concept of what a dollar actually means because you've worked in such high sums for so long that an individual dollar has lost any value to you at all.
Yep.
No cuts. Not a single cut. Not even to the defense budget.
Well, yeah, because you can't talk about that right now. Because we got to send money and stuff to Ukraine. So like that's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't really think about that. But there was no talk of cuts. It was getting rid of tax cuts.
Yes.
So it's
Tax increases.
yeah, tax increase. I like what our buddy Lonesome Lenny here says here. The State of the Union was the official quote, "Take your mask and get back to work," end quote speech.
Pretty much.
I think that sounds pretty fair to me, man.
Yep.
That's
And on
what-
the
that's
back
what I
end, yeah,
got.
was, and these are the ways that we're going to help you do it. You
Word.
know, even though we just showed you that we failed at that.
Yep.
We're gonna get after it again.
I love it. I love it. It's a fucking train wreck.
Yes.
And we're all here for it.
Do you have anything else for the State of the Union?
I don't believe I do, good sir.
Okay, so with that, guys, what we're going to take another short break. The streaming is not going to end. We're going to go to that break screen. So I want to remind you again to like the stream, like this, share it with your friends, comment on it. Again, thank you, everyone, for being here. And you can find us, obviously, youtube.com/saltofthestreets, instagram.com/saltofthestreets. That's where all the clips and stuff come out as well. Facebook, fuck Facebook at Salt of the Streets. saltofthestreets.com for all this information, plus our personal social media. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. Also, patreon.com/Salt of the Streets. With that, we'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought.